Hello and welcome back, everyone. Today we are here to talk about a movie that makes me unironically want to say, wow, they just don't make them like that anymore. An optimistic comic book movie unpoisoned by Buffy Speak-inspired Marvel movies, a movie that feels completely out of time in every single way. Today, we're talking about 1991's The Rocketeer.
The Rock of who?
Directed by Joe Johnston and based on the 1982 graphic novel of the same name by Dave Stevens, The Rocketeer was released on June 21st, 1991. And you guys, I'm not gonna lie, I absolutely love this movie. I might even call it a perfect movie. It's got a near perfect screenplay. Every actor knows exactly what movie they're in. It looks incredible. I mean, just look at this lighting. And it has what is, for my money, the best score in all of conductor James Horner's filmography. But let me know if you disagree in the comments. And in rewatching The Rocketeer, the thing that struck me the most about it was just how optimistic and how out of time it felt. Even by 1991 standards, this movie wasn't fitting in with the times. This is a movie that refuses to make fun of itself. That's not to say it doesn't have jokes, it's got plenty of them, but the jokes are never at the expense of the movie. There's not a single moment where some big thing happens and a character turns to another and says, well, that just happened, or some variation of it. Which is just a refreshing change of pace to go back and revisit and escape into a world where a boy solves all of his problems by strapping a rocket to his back and doing crazy stunts, and in the end, he saves the day, he gets the girl, he gets a new plane and a new rocket. The good guys win and the bad guys go up in flames. What's not to love? But before we get too deep into what I love about this movie, let's briefly break down the movie's plot and discuss how it came to be. In The Rocketeer, we follow stunt pilot Cliff Secord, played by Billy Campbell, and his mentor / mechanic Peavy, played by the always wonderful Alan Arkin, as they find a mysterious rocket and have to work to avoid the FBI, the Mafia, a pathetic actor, and Howard Hughes. Shout out to my boy John Locke as Howard Hughes. Never tell Locke what kind of plane he can build. Anyway, things really kick into gear when Cliff decides to use the rocket to save his friend Malcolm, who's lost control of the plane he's flying. And you guys, sure, some of the graphics and effects here look pretty dated, but also you can't tell me that these stunts aren't still cool to watch in 2025. After Cliff saves Malcolm, he's dubbed the Rocketeer by the press, which of course leads to everyone looking for the Rocketeer and, more importantly, the rocket that's strapped to his back. Howard Hughes uses the FBI to try and track them down, and our main antagonist, Neville Sinclair, played by Timothy Dalton, he's got the Mafia trying to track them down. All of this leads to Cliff's girlfriend Jenny being kidnapped by Sinclair, and Cliff being determined to rescue her. But don't think that Jenny is just some generic damsel in distress. Jennifer Connelly plays Jenny, and even at age 20, she fucking knocks this thing out of the park. The script went through a lot of changes in pre-production, and Jenny's character was one of the biggest changes. See, in the comics, Cliff's girlfriend is named Betty Page. Yeah, like that Betty Page. And in the comics, Betty is a pinup model. And for obvious reasons, Disney was not a fan of this idea. That and Page wouldn't release her likeness for the film anyway. So instead, Betty was changed to Jenny, and Jenny became a struggling actress. But the reason I bring this up is because it was a mandate that Jenny not feel like a damsel in distress, that she could hold her own, and I love that about her. I mean, she knocks a dude over the head with a statue while seducing him. So, how did this movie come to be? Well, the character was created in 1982 by Dave Stevens, and then the story was stuck in development hell from 1983 to 1990. Gee, I wonder what could have happened to finally get this movie made.
I'm Batman.
Anyway, Joe Johnston signed on to direct in late 89, and by late 1990, they were in production with Industrial Light and Magic handling the effects. On its $35 million budget, sadly, The Rocketeer only grossed about $45 million worldwide, which isn't quite a flop, especially in 1991 with the video market exploding, but it wasn't enough to justify a sequel either, which honestly I'm thankful for in retrospect. Though they did bring back Billy Campbell to voice Cliff for a Rocketeer animated show that Disney Plus did back when that first launched. It's very clearly a kid's show though, so I haven't watched it, but I'm sure it's fine. So why do I love The Rocketeer so much? I'm glad you asked. This movie, much like The Shadow, which I talked about a few weeks ago, go watch that video if you haven't, this was a childhood favorite of mine. And I still watch it every couple of years, and every single time I'm blown away by not only how well it's held up, but just how overwhelmingly good it is. Both as a movie and the content feels so wholesome, like a nice warm blanket. There's so many things that work about this movie. The script is a big part of that. I'd say this movie has a near perfect structure. Every beat is set up flawlessly and then paid off flawlessly. The biggest example of this is when Cliff and Jenny go to the movies in the first act and we see a news serial talking about an airship that's doing a tour of the US to promote, quote, world peace. And wouldn't you know it, the last stop on this tour is Los Angeles, where our movie just so happens to take place. And I've already said it, but our big third act set piece takes place on that airship. But this movie opens up beautifully, with Peavy and the crew prepping what looks like a brand new plane for a flight. I love the way these barn doors open, and again, the entire score to this opening sequence is just incredible. Cliff hops in the plane and it sets up several things immediately. Number one, that these guys have spent all of their time and money restoring this plane. Number two, that they hope to get into nationals with the plane. Number 3, that Cliff has a good luck ritual of sticking chewing gum on whatever he's flying. Number 4, he has to have a picture of Jenny in the cockpit to kiss for good luck. And number 5, we get to see Cliff and Peavy's relationship, and we know they're not father and son, but it's clearly the dynamic of their relationship. And then we cut to a car chase on the ground. We've got 3 cars and a shootout going on. We don't know what's happening or why, but this is a great way to break up the shots of Cliff flying the GB plane for the first time. Anyway, during the chase, for whatever reason, one of the mafia guys decides to shoot at Cliff's plane, which fucks everything up and means that Cliff will have to make an emergency crash landing. I really like how he punches out the cockpit window here. I mean, this entire sequence is blocked and shot perfectly. We understand absolutely everything that's happening and how bad it is for our main characters. I especially like when Peavy and Cliff try and confront the FBI about their plane and asking who's going to pay for it, and the agents are being fucking dicks, so Cliff just straight up punches the FBI agent. So later on, Peavy and Cliff discover the stashed rocket and do a quick test on a statue before really trying it out. And this test sequence is so fun and silly. Like, they use a hacksaw to cut the statue down and then tie the statue to a string and start up the rocket. My favorite part of the sequence is after the rocket has broken free and we cut to a shot of Cliff and Peavy looking at the camera, and we can see the rocket coming from miles away behind them. I just really like the way the rocket gets closer and closer and they don't notice it till it's almost too late, and then they duck and it flies over them and it crashes. Then we see the head of the statue is all banged up. Great. So anyway, later that night, Cliff picks up Jenny for their date, which ends at the Bulldog Cafe, a small diner out by the airstrip, and we immediately get the feeling that this is routine for them. They go to a movie, then they come to the diner, and then Cliff takes her home. It's the same thing every week. And we get the feeling that everyone in this diner is a family. They all love and care about one another, and Jenny is included in that. But it's also very clear that Jenny wants more for herself. She adores these people, but she wants the glitz and glamour of Hollywood. She asks Cliff about going somewhere else next time, and he kind of scoffs it off, and she tells him when he wins nationals, he has to take her to this fancy club. And all of this leads to Malcolm accidentally revealing to Jenny that Cliff lied to her about how the test flight went. He said it went well, but the landing had a few bumps, but the plane almost blew up and Cliff almost died. And upon hearing this from Malcolm, Jenny storms out of the diner. And I really like how after Jenny storms off, Millie, the diner owner, says, "Well, go after her, you dope." And it's not played as a joke. I mean, it's funny, but not in a wow, you did not just say that cheesy line kind of way, but because Cliff is acting like an idiot by not going after Jenny, and it's funny that Millie has to point that out to him. And then after this dinner scene, we get my favorite line reading from Arkin in this movie, when Cliff says, "What do you know? You haven't been on a date since 1932. And I just love this line he gives.
Flora Maxwell. There was no point in dating nobody after her.
The next day, we get to see Jenny at work, and I love the idea that Cliff was able to just walk onto this closed set without anyone stopping him. Also, whoever didn't properly build this set needs to lose their job, because my boy Cliff wasn't even touching that fucking wall when it fell. And even if he was, he never should have been able to knock it over. And this is where we also meet our antagonist, Neville Sinclair. And I don't think there's anyone on this earth who's better at playing overtly charming and overtly evil at the drop of a dime. I mean, the way this guy turns his charm on, I'm not sure many people could resist him. So Neville fires Jenny because of Cliff knocking over the set, but then overhears Cliff tell her about a rocket he found, and then after that, Neville is very interested in Jenny and starts laying on the charm and asks her out to dinner. And honestly, I love all of the scenes with Neville Sinclair. Timothy Dalton just absolutely crushed this role, and Jennifer Connelly holds her own in every scene with him. I love when they finally do go out to dinner at the fancy club, and she starts crying after they dance just because she's so incredibly overwhelmed by everything. And oh, hey look, it's Jan from The Office. But seriously, Sinclair is doing everything he can to sweep Jenny off her feet, and more importantly, trying to get her to tell him everything he can get out of her about Cliff. And while all of this is happening, the Mafia have shown up to the Bulldog Cafe, right as Cliff was about to call the FBI to confess that they have the rocket. This is a fun, tense scene because they're looking for Cliff, but they don't know what Cliff looks like, and Cliff is right there in the diner. And right as they figure it out, Cliff, Peavy, and the rest of the diner take the mafia goon out, and Cliff leaves to save Jenny. After arriving to the club, Cliff pretends to be a waiter and we get the infamous soup scene. And this is one of my favorite set pieces of the movie. I love how once the action kicks in, Cliff is aimlessly flying around the club, and I love when he accidentally closes this big ass prop seashell. It's just a really funny image that always sticks with me. Oh, and I haven't even mentioned Lothar yet. Lothar might actually be my favorite character in the movie. He definitely has my favorite introduction in the movie. I just love the soft colored lighting and the fact we don't see his face, only hear his deep, creepy voice, and he's immediately such an imposing presence. Like, we get this great scene at Peavy and Cliff's place where Lothar breaks in, and neither Peavy or Cliff are able to even remotely subdue him. It takes like 15 cops firing Tommy guns into the house to make Lothar flee, and he doesn't even get hit. He also folds a dude in half at one point. It's pretty sick. Okay, back to the club scene. So this is where Jenny gets kidnapped, and her entire interaction with Neville post-kidnapping is probably my favorite scene in the movie. The characters are both doing some of the best acting of their lives, with Neville trying to seduce Jenny, and Jenny playing along until she can find a way out. Like, you fully buy that she's into this dude right up until the moment she smashes this statue over his head and gives one of the best lines of the entire movie.
I finally played a scene with Neville Sinclair.
And while all of this is happening, Cliff and Peavy are finally taken in by the FBI and are introduced to Howard Hughes. I like how people are so obsessed with this rocket, but realistically, no one can fucking fly it. Even Cliff has trouble with it throughout the movie. And anyway, all of this culminates at the Griffith Observatory. And this leads to this really great moment with the FBI and the Mafia teaming up to shoot. And I love this little moment where Eddie catches this FBI guy next to him and they're both shooting at the and he kind of stops and smiles. It's just a really cute scene. And finally, we get our grand finale on the airship, and we get this excellent hero shot of Cliff in the Rocketeer outfit holding a gun in front of the American flag. But the finale on the airship is great. I like how Cliff tries to punch Lothar in the balls and it just doesn't work. And remember when I said earlier that the script sets up and pays everything off perfectly? Yeah? How about when I said that Cliff has to put chewing gum on whatever he's flying for good luck? Well, what I didn't mention is that at some point the rocket gets shot and begins leaking fuel, which Peavy uses Cliff's lucky chewing gum to cover up as a quick fix. Well, Cliff removes this gun just before handing the rocket over to Sinclair, which causes him to blow up after he tries to fly away with the rocket. There's a lot to love about the Rocketeer. Like I've said multiple times now, it just feels of a different era. It's more of an adventure film from the 30s than even the Indiana Jones movies are. Like, compared to the Rocketeer, Raiders of the Lost Ark plays like a parody of 30s adventure movies. And the cinematography in this movie is just absolutely incredible. Cinematographer Hiro Narita just absolutely nails the look of this movie. It's bright and fun, and the night scenes all have this subtle colored lighting to add just a little something extra to the scenes. It never goes crazy with it. The lighting always feels very subtle and subdued, but if you're looking for it, you'll be blown away by just how beautiful it is. So, over 30 years after being released, what is this movie's legacy? Is it remembered fondly? Honestly, not really. I know a few years ago, Red Letter Media did a review on this movie, so I'm sure that helped many more people finally sit down and watch it. But like they say in their review, The Rocketeer is kind of geared towards a specific audience. Like, you couldn't show this to a modern teenager raised on MCU films and have them enjoy it. Sure, this movie has some incredible stunts, but action sequences have evolved so much over the past 30 years that it just barely plays as action. The idea of a guy falling out of a plane, kinda boring when Captain America jumps out of planes with no parachute for fun. Although I'm realizing in typing this up that even that Captain America reference is from an 11-year-old movie at this point. For me, this movie's legacy just reminds me of a simpler time, a time when movies weren't poisoned by irony and quips or completely grim and dark, filled with gritty realism. I love that this movie's story is so black and white. The good guys are the good guys and they always do the right thing, and the bad guys always, without fail, are doing the wrong thing. It's really nice to see our hero beat the bad guys, get the girl, get a new plane and a new rocket, teasing a sequel but not necessarily setting one up either. The Rocketeer just tells a complete story and it's under 2 hours long. What more could you ask for now that we live in a world where every comic book movie stretches past the 2-hour mark and has a mandate from the studio to definitely set up a sequel and or cinematic universe? So The Rocketeer might not be the most popular movie ever made. Hell, it's one I'm sure most people have forgotten about at this point, but those of us that saw it in the 90s or as kids will always have a soft spot for it because, like I said earlier, it's a pretty perfect movie. Like, truly, I don't have a single complaint about it. The screenplay is perfect. The performances match the tone of the movie perfectly. Joe Johnston's vision matches the source material, Hiro Narita understood the assignment and made this movie look incredible, and James Horner's score just brings it all together. I've been Brandon from Born to Rant. Let me know about your history with The Rocketeer in the comments. I'd love to hear from you and talk about this movie more. If you've made it this far into the video, thank you for watching. It means the world. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. We release new videos covering nerd culture every Thursday at 7 a.m. Pacific time. And with that all said and done, we will see you next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.